I highly advise that you do your research. There are thousands of transitional fossils. We have thousands of evidence for it.
What?
There are thousands of transitional fossils. We have thousands of evidence for it.
What? I'm quite positive you meant to say.
There are thousands of transitional illustrations of the creatures. Thousands of transitional illustrated example, illustration. Thousands of transitional illustrations of the creatures. Simply search transitional fossil into Google search engine or any search engine you prefer. Search transitional fossil and you will find thousands of them.
The list of transitional fossils right here. So we click on that, and what do we find? We find the list of transitional fossils, and lo and behold, we have images, cartoon images, artist renditions, all through the page. Where will we find a real fossil? So far we're finding images and cartoons and drawings, black and white illustrations, more illustrations. On the Wikipedia page, just when I think it can't get any weirder, I click on this little creature. I want to get a good look of it. There it is. This is so weird. This is the height of why I laugh at evolutionists. This is pawned off as evolutionary fact. It's an artistic rendering, and a bad one at that. What did they do? Just draw this out with pencil and then put it on the Wikipedia? Is this a joke, people? Is this a joke? I'm supposed to believe this? This is our ancestor? This is in the title page of fossil. This is found in list of transitional fossils. Fossils. List of transitional fossils. That's a transitional fossil? Evolution is a joke. This is a absolute joke. And you want me to believe this? You want me to drink this up? It has no description. It has no relation. No status. Hey, Quitchthias. And appearance? Hey, what the heck? We don't even have that. But let's click on its name, Hey, Quitchthias. And it leads us over to another artistic rendering. But we've got a movie. A movie about the Quitchthias. Walking with monsters. Quitchthias seen swimming. You can see the Quitchthias swimming because now with the science advances in digital artistry, we're able to bring to life the imagination of the evolutionary scientists. Pokemon! Defenders of the world, walking with monsters. Pokemon, now in digital high definition. You can go back in time and see the imagination of the evolutionary mindset. We don't have the fossils, we don't have empirical evidence, but we have high definition digital renderings.
If there were no transitional fossils and there were no transitional forms, intermediate forms whatsoever, that does not disprove evolution in the slightest. We don't even need...
What? What?
If there were no transitional fossils and there were no transitional forms, intermediate forms whatsoever, that does not disprove evolution.
What? Darwin admitted that the number of transitional links must have been conceivably great. The fact that there are none prompted him to conclude that this fact is the most obvious and gravest objection which can be urged against my theory.
If we're talking about seeing evolution today, seeing one species changing into another species, that's not going to happen. Although there must be, from an evolutionary perspective, many transitional forms out there, the likelihood of finding any one of them is extremely low.
What?
Well, there must be, from an evolutionary perspective, many transitional forms out there. The likelihood of finding any one of them is extremely low. Finding any one of them is extremely low.
What? What?
You cannot claim that the intermediates would be inefficient. They would not be very highly suited, you see, to survive, so they'd be in few numbers. No, that's not true at all. According to evolution, it is a successful organism that evolves, and the successful organism is the one who reproduces in larger numbers. So at all times during this evolutionary process, there'd be very large population of these evolving creatures, or the intermediate forms, or the transitional types, you see. Therefore, evolution would have produced an enormous number of intermediates or transitional forms. Billions times billions of those things would have lived and died. Why, there should be no doubt about the fact of evolution. It should be the most well-established fact known in science. All we'd have to do is just look at the fossils.
First of all, if you disprove evolution, if evolution wasn't true, that doesn't prove creationism, not in the slightest sense.
What?
If you disprove evolution, if evolution wasn't true, that doesn't prove creationism, not in the slightest sense.
Here's an example of the bias that you get from the people researching evolution. See, a Kansas University professor, he said even if all the data point to an intelligent designer, such a hypothesis is excluded from the science because it's not naturalistic. You say no matter what evidence he has, he's not going to believe in a designer because he's already excluded it without even looking at the evidence. He's already made up his mind there's no such thing as a designer because it's not scientific.
It's amazing. A Big Bang made this from nothing. That's the humanist worldview based on evolution. Other people look at the world and say, you know, there's incredible design, there must be a designer, and that's called the creationist worldview. And those two worldviews are polar opposite. I mean, somebody's wrong, okay? And they are at war with each other. And I enjoy showing them who's wrong.
You rarely see any creationists argue against DNA evidence, and this is because most people, most creationists, are very much ill-educated, like the individual here. They won't talk about DNA evidence or try and refute that because they don't understand it.
What?
Most creationists are very much ill-educated, like the individual here. They won't talk about DNA evidence or try and refute that because they don't understand it.
We can work out if we had a pinhead of DNA, in theory we could write the information of these books on DNA. But it turns out a pinhead 2 millimeters in diameter, a spherical pinhead, would be the equivalent of a pile of paperback books reaching from here to the sun. Just about, or 500 times from here to the moon. That's paperback books I could store on just one pinhead of DNA. Or to put it another way, see, a 1600 kilometer high pile of CDs. You know, a CD can store the entire set of the Encyclopedia Britannica, but a 1600 kilometer high pile of CDs would be required to store what could be stored in just a single pinhead of DNA. The other way of putting it is a 40 gigabyte hard drive is not a bad hard drive, I've been told, but in fact a pinhead of DNA is 100 million times better. So you think our multi-gigabyte hard drive is something special. Well, God's information technology just leaves it in the dust. This is the world's tiniest motor, and the discovery was regarded as so important that they won the Nobel Prize. That was only about 5 years ago that they won this. And it's so complicated I can't even draw it for you properly in this thing. This is only a schematic. See, each of these ones here has a 500 subunits and arranged in a very precise way. And it's spinning about 10,000 revs per minute. So you listen carefully, you might hear it whirring. They're in each of your cells. But here's an example of it in very, very slow motion. This is the profile view. Of course, this is going about 10,000 revs per minute though. And here's a top view of it. And every rotation, it produces 3 ATP molecules. But this molecule is vital for life, and yet it's an incredibly complicated motor. You couldn't have life unless you had this motor to produce the energy currency. So it looks like this motor must have been there right from the beginning. And I'd say that because this motor is so much better, so much tinier, more efficient than any motor we can design, I'd say the designer of this motor is far more intelligent than any motor designer we have today too.
Look, we have killer whale at the bottom, and we go up backwards through time to its earliest ancestor, and we can see the evolution of that happening. We have those of reptiles to birds. Here are early dinosaur fossils, and we can see them evolve into birds slowly. There's famous Archaeopteryx, and then we have a modern day bird. If there were no transitional fossils and there were no transitional forms, intermediate forms whatsoever, that does not disprove evolution.